Clemson has an edge to beat the Gamecocks this weekend. We'll talk about it right here on Locked on Clemson.
You are Locked on Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Tiger fans? Morgan Thomas here, Clemson fan, Clemson grad, host and producer of Locked on Clemson, part-time host and producer over on 105.5 FM The Roar. Thank you so much for making Locked on Clemson your first listen of the day. We're part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day, and now the #1 sports podcast network. Thank you so much for making us that. And to the everydayers out there, big salute to you for hanging with us Monday through Friday. You know how we do it here, exclusive Clemson content right for you. And if you are new to the show, you haven't hit that follow, you haven't hit that subscribe, what are you waiting for? Well, if you haven't yet listened to an episode, let's hear me out through this episode. I'm sure you'll love it, and click that follow and that subscribe so you never miss another episode. Speaking of this episode, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. The rundown is simple. We're going to continue to talk about what Clemson should focus on to beat South Carolina in segment 3. Segment 2, before that, we'll talk about South Carolina's wild cards that could beat Clemson and really, really ruin your weekend. But first, let's get into why Clemson has the edge, or the way that I should maybe frame that is how or what person is going to give Clemson that edge. And let's start with this. The edge to me is not something world class or not some megastar. And it's not going to be something that is going to be, game changing new stuff you've heard about. Clemson doesn't have to be massively dominant to win this game. They don't have to have some megastar just take over, but it'd be great if they did. Clemson is definitely a balanced team, and I believe more balanced than South Carolina. But they forget that that is the winning formula that gets them to the finish line, to win games, to win close games sometimes. Hopefully this weekend they won't forget that. And I'm saying Dabo Swinney and Garrett Riley. They have to stay balanced to win this game. If you look at South Carolina, they are 4-7 for a reason. They have flashes, but they can't sustain anything for 4 quarters. Clemson, on the other hand, really not that much different either. Not perfect, but to me, Clemson is a little bit more trustworthy. And I know it's hard to say in a season like this, but I feel there's a little bit more stability with Clemson, mainly because of the balance on offense, if they can remember to do that. Clemson averages, about 400 yards per game, and maybe right about half of that, a little bit more than half, comes from the passing attack, and the rest comes from the rushing attack. Clemson can attack South Carolina in multiple ways and keep them on their toes if they remember that that's what works for them, is being balanced. They have Antonio Williams. They have TJ Moore. They're going to probably have to use Christian Bentancur and Josh Sapp because Olsen Pat Henry's out. But, they have some tight ends that they can trust. They have Tristan Smith as well as a wide receiver. The Tigers can keep it balanced, can use tempo, avoid the costly turnover, and grind it out. South Carolina doesn't have that luxury in the same way. And I wanted to talk about one specific player that could quietly become the spark, in my opinion, that helped South Carolina beat Louisville on the road late this season. And that guy is the in-state guy, the Myrtle Beach guy of Adam Randall, or I should say Little River guy of Adam Randall. Not the wide receiver version. We've heard all the jokes. Oh, he's just a converted wide receiver. And that is unfair to what he has brought to the table this season. Adam Randall has rushed for almost 700 yards this season. He's got 8 touchdowns through the ground. And quietly averaging 5 yards per carry. These aren't empty calories here. This is real production behind an offensive line that you just can't trust. And it's been up and down all season. Adam Randall may be a converted wide receiver, but I told you this from fall camp that he was all in. He was bought into this conversion to running back. And he is going to run like a running back. He's going to run hard. The concern I may have is that he may fumble the ball. He has had a couple of fumbles, which you wish you could have back this season. But overall, Adam Randall has done extremely well in being exactly what Clemson needs him to be. He was a spark against Louisville. He was a spark last season, late in the season as a running back. He kept this team going, and I believe he will do so again against South Carolina. He's already finished up his last home game, now being a senior, and he's going to finish up his last game, well, really regular season game, last rivalry game. It means a lot to Adam Randall to win this game. It's not so much about, the fact that he's a converted wide receiver. It's just really, to me, how hard he runs. He gives Clemson something that they can't get anywhere else. He's a finisher. He can drop a big run when you need it the most. He's also a guy that if the offensive line has any kind of push, which maybe I'm wishful thinking here, can get this team ahead of the count on early downs. He can turn, a 1-yard play into a 5-yard play, 6-yard play, and that is huge when you need anything you can get. Clemson cannot afford to live in 3rd and long. They cannot afford to go to all passing. I really don't want to see Cade Klubnik throwing for 50 attempts. I don't want to see that at all. I know it's going to be a struggle against South Carolina's defense and their defensive front that is so good. I get that. But if he can have any kind of success, then that will free up some other things in this game. The worst thing that you could happen with Clemson is for Garrett Riley to go back to not trusting his running game and then forgetting about his running game. I don't want this team to just pass the ball. I don't think that's how they're going to win the game, or they'll be able to win the game. And I don't want to see 3rd and longs as much as possible, because what we saw is struggles against Furman. They're going to have to step up. They can't do what they did against Furman and just be lackadaisical 3rd down and having to go to 4th down. Clemson may have to get a bunch of 4th down conversions against this team as well to get any kind of hope to win. It's going to be a close one. I don't want to come off as overly confident that Clemson will be able to do this. I'm just saying that, to me, this is the edge that Clemson has if they were to have anything. And I do like the wide receivers as well, but I worry about putting the ball in the hands of Cade Klubnik too much. And that's why I'd much rather lean on Adam Randall. He also can be another piece to the passing game, but I don't want him to be included in that way because, again, I don't really want to see Clemson just try to win this game by throwing the ball 50 times. Although South Carolina's secondary has been inconsistent, to me, it starts by establishing a run that is worthy of being watched out for. You can't just ignore it altogether. If you establish any sort of run, I'm not even saying that he needs 100 yards. What I'm saying is that if he's there where the defense has to respect it at least a little bit, then that allows for more opportunities in the passing game. And in the passing game, even with Adam Randall. And maybe, just maybe, it's not the traditional running game that works because of how good that South Carolina defensive front is. Maybe they have to use Adam Randall in the passing game behind the line of scrimmage and screen them in the screen game and screen them to death. It could be the edge that allows Clemson to dictate and control the game and keep it the way that they want it under control and keep the crowd out of it. Steady play keeping the ball on the ground or screen games to Randall, I think is what's going to help Clemson win this game if they have any sort of advantage. And again, I don't want to come off overly confident because I'm not. This is a rivalry game. These are two teams that are hungry to get this win. And Clemson's balance is going to be what avoids them losing, if I put it that way. Maybe that's better. All right, segment 2, we're going to get into South Carolina and some of the wild cards that you need to be watching out for this Saturday. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. If you miss the start of a game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. If you need more details, you can go over to fanduel.com/research. I love the research site. I've promoted this a ton because you can get in if you have any doubts or you want any kind of like insight on what may be a good play for the weekend, you can go over to fanduel.com/research, and they have a lot of experts over there to help you make your decisions. So right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head over to fanduel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you for making Locked On Clemson your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Getting into segment 2, South Carolina's wild cards, the Gamecock wild card. Let's talk about the rival game. I could talk about Lenore Sellers. I mean, I believe that the reason why South Carolina will win will be Lenore Sellers. He's the best player on the field. He struggled to do anything in the air against Clemson last season, but 166 yards rushing still and 2 touchdowns still gives me nightmares. The offensive line hasn't been great, hasn't given him a lot of time to work. And the ground game, again, has gotten to be honest with you, worse. But when Lenore Sellers is doing good, the rushing attack, has some sort of life. The Gamecocks aren't bad. Kind of similar to what I said in segment 1. When Clemson has balance, they're really not terrible, but they're just obviously still not good. Overcoming mistakes is going to be a big thing for South Carolina. They're 0-6 when turning the ball over, and when they protect the ball, they're 4-1. So this game is going to be won around turnovers, and I'm kind of giving you a little bit of a hint into segment 3. But back to segment 2, South Carolina and their wild cards. Okay, first, I think that there's a reality that South Carolina is not a good team. They're not a deep team, but and they can fold late in games, but they have some guys that you need to be worried about. They have some guys that can make some plays and that are athletes. And if you're playing against an opponent that is similar to you, which we'll really find out who's truly similar or not, but we believe that both teams are similarly have problems, and both teams are kind of not good teams. It could be that South Carolina is much better than Clemson just because they have a bad record, is really because they played more difficult schedule. And that would be a nightmare. But it could be the case. To me, the first player that Clemson has to keep an eye on, Clemson fans should circle, would have to be Jaden Sellers. He's come on late this season, and in their last game, put up a ton of receiving yards and a touchdown. He's become a guy that the offensive coordinator trusts, obviously his brother trusts, and sort of feels like he's kind of their third down go-to guy. Sellers, I mean, I think it's not shocking to say this, but he looks to his brother when he's scrambling. And to me, who better than to look to somebody you've grown up with? A receiver that can turn a short play or a scramble or a busted play into 20, 30 yards. And if Clemson still struggles with tackling in space, he could have a couple of big plays. And you get those two guys working together, to me, that's where it's dangerous. You could do everything right and Lenore Sellers still beat you. You could do everything right and Jaden Sellers now still beat you. Clemson has struggled with containment at times this season. And if Lenore Sellers escapes the pocket, he doesn't have to run it, although I am worried about that. The more he's improvising in space, the more I'm a little bit nervous about how Clemson's going to be able to stop that. Clemson's defense is still solid, but, they have allowed chunk plays throughout this season. And they haven't forced teams to make a ton of mistakes. More often than not, the teams have been able to run their plays the way that they wanted to. And if Lenore Sellers starts improvising, then Jaden Sellers will be there as kind of an outlet for him. Clemson cannot allow South Carolina to turn broken plays into big plays. And it could very easily happen. And if it's not Sellers to Sellers, then it could be Sellers to Harbor. Most of my Clemson fans have said to me, Morgan, we feel okay stopping their run game. We feel okay stopping Sellers, which I don't, but they do. A lot of my friends have said, we don't really feel okay with stopping Harbor. And honestly, I get that. There's not somebody that's going to be able to match up with him one-on-one very well on the Clemson sideline. So to me, maybe it's as simple as that. Letting your megastars, your superstars shine and just winning the game that way. I'm really looking more for wild cards in this segment. So hopefully you'll entertain me with a guy that maybe some people aren't looking at. Another guy that I think that's not getting any attention at all, and rightfully so, is their running back, Rasul Faison. I mean, we talked about it on the radio. We thought he would be much better than he is, and he just hasn't been that great. And the running game has been worst in the country. And I know what you're saying to me, Morgan, how can this guy be a wild card? If they're one of the worst in the country, it's going to be no problem at all. They're near the bottom in rushing yards per game in all of college football. So shutting that down should be easy, right? But, you just never know in rivalry games. What if Faison hits a home run ball? What if he is a guy that can cut back and get downfield with a burst? Obviously, later on in the season hasn't been as great, but with those issues that Clemson has had on defense, allowing some busts and some miscommunication, one mistake is all it takes. So while I'm not worried about South Carolina's rushing attack a ton either, when you look at this being a rivalry game, that's where the unknown is always going to happen. Clemson and South Carolina in a bad season, this is the Super Bowl for both teams. This is the Super Bowl for the fan base. I give South Carolina a little bit of a pass because of their stats, simply because of the games that they've had to play in October and November. It's not comparable to Clemson. We have to admit that. So while you could say, well, Morgan, they're terrible on offense they're terribly ranked on offense. They're okay on defense, and they're terrible at rushing the ball. I mean, the opponents haven't been exactly the same with Clemson, and the opponents that they've played have been extremely difficult. And I'll give them that. And if you give this team oxygen in the running game, the Gamecocks will make it messy and they'll make it stressful and they'll walk away with a win and they'll feed off that chaos from not being able to stop a run game that you walked in thinking that you were going to stop. 4-7 can seem like, oh, this is definitely a team you can beat. 100 and something in total offense or rushing attack. I think total offense 112, rushing 115. You're thinking to yourself, this team's terrible. But they have a handful of players that can create explosive plays, and we haven't seen South Carolina play Clemson. And Clemson hasn't played the opponents that South Carolina has. All right, we're going to finish up segment 3 talking about the focus of this game this weekend for Clemson and South Carolina right here on Locked on Clemson. The holidays always feel a little easier when you already know the perfect gift, and Omaha Steaks makes it almost too simple. Whether you're treating yourself this season or sending something memorable to your family or friends, Omaha Steak delivers handcrafted perfection right to their door. And this week is the best time to jump in because their cyber sale is here and the deals are huge. Now, I've given Omaha Steaks as a gift to my brother-in-law before, and the reaction, man, he loves it. He waits for it. He can't wait for it. The excitement when that box gets there and the smile that he has when he throws it on the grill, he loves it. So you can save big and give an unforgettable gift with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off select favorites during their cyber sale. And for an additional $35 off, all you got to do is use promo code COLLEGE, COLLEGE, at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code COLLEGE. Terms apply. See the site for details. We need to talk about the big blueprint for Clemson to win on Saturday. It's simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. And everybody's gotten into my DMs about this. Morg, we've got to protect the football and we've got to force turnovers. Everything is going to be centered around turnovers in this rivalry. Go look at the last 2 times that South Carolina has beaten Clemson. And a lot of times these games are dictated by turnover heavy performances. South Carolina, they get turnovers, they can't sustain drives. Clemson gets turnovers, gives South Carolina another breath to get the lead and maintain the lead. South Carolina feeds off short fields and they can take it if you give it to them. Clemson cannot hand them those types of opportunities. So, number 1 out the gate is turnovers. Don't allow them. As I mentioned earlier, when South Carolina makes a lot of mistakes, they have not been able to win. They're 0-6. When South Carolina protects the football, they are 4-1. So the first thing out the gate is turnovers. Now Clemson hasn't been the greatest in turnover football from the defensive standpoint. They started out early this season doing really well, but have kind of trailed off towards October, November. I'd love to see some more opportunistic play from the defense to get these turnovers. I believe that the secondary and, after the Furman game, after the Louisville game, might be a little bit more confident in that. We shall see. So, number 1, turnovers. Force them. Don't give them away. And really, for the Gamecocks, same thing. Second, as I mentioned in the previous show, to me, I would love to see Cade Klubnik kill it. I mean, can Cade Klubnik right a lot of wrongs by winning this game big? He could. But for me, controlling first down with Adam Randall. South Carolina's run defense isn't bad, but they can be pressed against. South Carolina's run defense right now, 47th in the country. Not bad. Not bad. Compared to Clemson, 24th in the country. So not as good as Clemson, and we feel pretty frustrated with Clemson. However, if you go by ranking alone, not going to be good for you because, again, we talked about the opponents that South Carolina has had to play. Their rush defense hasn't been the greatest, but against Clemson and their weak offensive line that I don't trust, it's going to be hard to say. Clemson's offensive line of Tristan Lee, Colin Sadler, Ryan Linthicum, Harris Sewell, and Blake Miller, honestly, I hate it. I really hate that lineup. I don't like it at all. But that's what Clemson has. And they're going to have to prove that they can get something going with Adam Randall or Gideon Davidson in the running attack, controlling first down and having some sort of respectable run game is going to be a big point for Clemson. That's going to help Clemson control time of possession and ultimately control the game. Third, Lenore Sellers. I would rather him throw the ball. He's much less accurate. Also, when you can contain him, he's going to want to try to get out of the pocket and make some plays downfield. I don't think he's going to be looking to run first, but if he does, Sammy Brown's going to need to step up for us, for Clemson. So I don't want to see Lenore Sellers running free, and I definitely don't want to see another 166-yard game, and it's really going to all fall on the shoulders of Sammy Brown. And that kind of rolls into the explosive play concern that you have as well. If South Carolina has to sustain a drive, for 10 to 12 or more plays, I don't think they can do it consistently. Now, I can't really say Clemson can either, but Clemson can force that and not allow big explosive plays to Harbor or Jaden Sellers. To me, that's going to be huge for being able to walk away with a win. And as I mentioned in segment 1, to me, and I know we can't trust him a ton, but if Garrett Riley can remember to maintain balance for this Clemson team, throwing and running and not forgetting about the run game, I think it's going to help the tempo. I think it'll help control the clock, and it'll allow Clemson to win what I believe to be a physical game and out-survive South Carolina. Again, I don't want to come off as overly confident. I made mistakes in the past of being overly confident. Am I going to take Clemson plus the points? Probably, just because it's in my heart, man. It's in my heart. I bleed orange. I'm not saying it's the right move. I'm just saying I have a diploma on the wall. I have a jersey on the back of the wall, and I'm wearing a ring. And you go with your heart, right, in these rivalry games. So I'll close with this. The worst thing that can have happen in this game would be hero ball from Cade Klubnik. So Cade, if you're listening, which I hope you're not, we don't need hero ball from Cade Klubnik. Just play within the strengths that your offense has shown, and get the ball into the players that can make the best plays in those moments, the guys you trust. And it should be Antonio Williams, it should be Randall and Davidson, and it should be TJ Moore. Outside of that, there's a few others maybe you can trust, but you have a core group of guys you can trust. The one thing that you can't trust right now is that offensive line, and they're going to have to step up. They're really going to have to step up. I hate to say it. I don't like that starting 5, but that's what you got. That's the cards that have been dealt, and they're going to have to step up to win this game. Hey, thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out Locked On ACC. Kenton Gibbs, Alex Dono, they break down the most interesting conference in college sports, from the rivalries to the championships to every game in between. Find Locked On ACC on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And as always, Tiger fans, we'll see you tomorrow for our Friday show, and we'll see you at the top of the hill.